Guys, Ben Travovic here from the Manly Seagulls.
Here comes through Luai.
The SuperCoach Experience Podcast is one of the best podcasts going around, boys.
They go to Scores
Keep doing what you're doing, and yeah, I just want to say, what a podcast. Go the Mighty Eagles.
Hey lads, Ewan Aiken here from the New Zealand Warriors. Hope you have a big year with the SuperCoach Experience Podcast.
Got the ball to Sims. It's down to It's gone in again. What a pass.
Welcome to the SuperCoach Experience. I'm your host, Maxi, coach of the Fashionistas. Another round's in the books and another round to sum up on the SuperCoach Experience Sunday night podcast after a initial round one pilot, or I call it round one because it's the first episode that I did. We've come back for a second one, which is great. So the pilot's been approved by the seniors at SuperCoach Experience podcast. And I'm here with the one, the only, Mr. Tim Moody, 2021 winner of SuperCoach. How are you, Timmy?
Good, man. I'm good. I was a little unsettled by the end of the round. I didn't know how to feel. I sort of finished on a pretty decent score, but I kind of was sort of left a bit of points on the pine there. A bit frustrated in not having played Cobbo. And, I started bad. I mean, Stags with a 14 and there was Tass with a 24. Walker only got a 47. So after the first, game of footy, I was stressing out pretty hard. Then, there was like a few, pretty decent performers in the side. I think I got about six guys that turned up. But my captain I just got the captain wrong with Pappy. A lot of people went there, so it's not the end of the world, but I've just been reflecting and thinking about, how much of an opportunity it was to sort of fade Pappy where there were so many good options this week. And when, everyone is going one thing, sometimes going against a crowd can sometimes really pay off on a week like this. I think particularly was a missed opportunity just because there were so many good options, and all it does take is for, Pappy to get injured or for them to be flogging them and get a spell early. You know what I mean? Or not even have that much of an involvement. Maybe it's just a Munster or day or a Hughes day where they do all the work. So I'm a little bit, but yeah, we'll take what we've got, I guess, and look forward.
Yeah, look, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. It was definitely one of those weeks where, everyone was kind of thinking, either Pappy or Cleary, and the difficult matchup for Cleary meant that Pappy was really the favoured. So, it can play off for you, it can't play off for you. The reality is you had a lot of tons in your team. What did you end up on for the round?
13-14. So not bad.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, Hines 14 with a 144, Munster with a 122, Grant with a 129, Teddy with a 126, Garrick with a 103. They're all even Taylor May with a 96, a pretty decent score there. Few sucky ones, but those guys really made up for it. Yeah, just a little disappointed with the captain, but I guess you'll take it. I probably have only left, not great with the numbers, but it's probably only about 60 points for the captain being wrong and not getting that one. I probably wouldn't have gone to Hines, being that I had Cleary as my VC. In hindsight, I didn't think Cleary was a great option, so I probably should have hedged my bets. It just would have been impossible to VC Pappy and then captain Hines, even though I would have had them in respective positions. I just wouldn't have been able to loop it. It's too late in the round. But yeah, look, I think I'm just being a bit hard on myself. It's probably a pretty decent round.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a fantastic round. I think it's well above par for this week. I think you're looking at around 1,200, 1,250 for par. So, you're well above that, albeit with Cobbo on the bench. For me, I got a 1,267, which was, it's great for a non-Hines team. Obviously, The Sunday game today was pretty hard. But I had some really good trades. I brought in IPAP a couple of weeks back, and he's obviously, hit his straps real well. And I had Daniel Tupou, who was looking a bit on the bit in shambles, but kind of came through with a double, who was really good for me. I kept him happy too, but I think objectively it was the right call. I think that if he was playing the full game and he didn't have that little niggle he could have easily, got 120, 130.
He
was
probably would have,
looking well like that. So, I mean, I think the key takeaway for me this round, as we'll go in, is, every year I have a player who I just refuse to get in. I just can't fit him in, or I go somewhere else. It was Angus Crichton 3 or 4 years back, and it's Hines this year. And, obviously not having him was tough today, but I'm bringing him this week. So we're going onwards and upwards. So going into the first game of the week, we had the Rabbitohs versus the Broncos, which was quite a surprising game. A lot of people brought in Cody Walker, myself included, who didn't really hit his straps, as you said, only a 47. But the highs for this round for this game were A-Ray with 100, Cobbo with an 85, which we've spoken about. Unfortunately, only one on your bench, but it is what it is. And the lows for this game were Stags with a 14 and Alex Johnson with a 14, and Arrow with a 28. And the key talking point for me, you're an owner of this gentleman, is Stags at 595k with a score of 14. You've obviously held him, through his tough scores. A lot of people have bought him in when he had those, those 2 great scores. Do you think that with his next game being Manly, is he a sell this week, or would you hold on and look forward to Newcastle, Titans, and Canberra after that?
I think Manly's a good side, and from what we've seen so far, I would also consider South's a good side. So I guess my theory is not going to work, but it seems like to me that, depending on matchup, I think maybe more so matchup. If Tony Staggs has got someone that he's got a job to do on and it's an important matchup, he seems to turn up to work, clock in and say, I'm here to do the job. But if there's someone easy, I'm not calling Tass easy, but he's a rookie compared to, some of the other people he's matching up against. It seems like he doesn't go out of his way. He just sort of lets it happen. So maybe we need to be selective on matchup. It's hard to leave him out, though, when he does have that sort of flair and can score so big. I think you just got to take what you get with him and, take the good with the bad, and play him more often than not, I think. Yeah. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, and look, I think you're right. And for people who are a bit concerned about the Manly matchup, if he's, I don't know what injuries we have, but if we play the same side we played this week, he'll be up against Harper, you would think, right?
Nah. Doesn't Harper playing on the right normally? Or is he swapped back?
No, but Harper was on the left on the weekend, yeah, because we had Cooler on the right with Christian Tupulotu, and Harper switched to the left. However, I think that was just in the second half a little bit, and maybe Ben Trebojevic goes back to the left.
I think Desi might sort of address that.
At Brookie, we had Yep, and you think after the Talakai incident that he will.
Yeah, so I think maybe he might switch it around, or maybe, who knows? We'll see. Cooler did a pretty decent job, so maybe on Talakai compared to what the other fellow was about. Stagsy Boy was able to do. Oh, geez, I've got them all jumbled up. Who am I talking about? Buddy Talakai. Oh, I don't know, buddy. It's been a long week, mate. It's about my 7th podcast. Yep. Give me a break. Yeah, so play on.
He's a popular man, our Timmy. He's been on 7 podcasts and smashing it.
Oh, I've just started a new job too, so I'm bloody all over the place. I'm getting up at 4 a.m. in the morning. I'm a trooper at the moment. Anyway, back to this game. Have you got? I think there's a lag between me and you. You seem like a foreign correspondent.
It is what it is. I mean, the constant. Yeah.
It's fine.
We'll get Mr. Savage to address that.
Yeah, so I think another play that really surprised me from this game was Carrigan, just so we can continue.
So the surprise.
This is awkward. The lag's really making it tough to not talk over each other. And then if we're trying to not talk each other, there's a massive, massive moment where we're just sitting there looking at each other going. So, yeah, this is a tough one. Let's press on though. I'm going to keep talking because I'm still talking, and hopefully that works for you. I was surprised by Carrigan. I think he was a pretty decent option. I know he was back from injury, but I think he was someone that sort of went under the radar. He really stepped up in the absence of Haas, which I don't know how much of a target he'd be with Origin looming and stuff, but yeah, he's someone to keep an eye on, I think.
Yep. And I mean, my other surprise of this game was Trent Peoples with a 68 on debut in 64 minutes. Pretty solid performance, albeit the controversy with him being played. But he might be a valuable number and someone to look at if he continues with another 60, especially in the front row or the second row. I believe he's one of the two. There's not that many cheapies coming around. They all appear to be in the centre wing, so might be one to look out for. Which brings us on to the next game, which is Raiders and the Bulldogs. So I don't think this was the most exciting game, and I don't think that's probably surprising for anyone who was watching it. However, the goods for this one, Pango with a 67, Burton had a 63, obviously a great game for him following his big money signing over there, and Papali with a 59. And the lows, I mean, everyone else really. Schneider was a big one, which a couple of people, or I think he's still owned by about 10% of people, if not more. He scored a 26, obviously lost the goal kicking there. So he's obviously a sell. And my theory last week of he'll drop in price enough for us to maybe pick him out for round 13 is maybe proving to be a good call. The talking point for this one is TPJ, 67 in 60 minutes. He seems to be a fantastic option for round 13. For you, and he obviously, I think he avoided a suspension. He's just going to get a fine this week. Do you move on him now, or do you wait until round 12, round 13 to bring someone like him in?
I think maybe closer to round 13, but then again, his price might get up. I'm looking at it. I think he had a fairly low BE this week. I was looking at him. I think it might have been 35-ish. I could be wrong. Well, I can probably find that out if I have a quick look at him. BE. Oh, 60. So it wasn't that big of a deal. Okay. Oh, no, I clicked on Matt Burton. Hold on a second. I've got fat fingers. Pangai. 45. So, yeah, look, at that price of 560, it was pretty juicy. I almost went there. I was basically last second flipped to Lolo just because I was stressing out about the factor of him getting suspended. I thought if I pick him up as a buy guy and he does go getting suspended, then I can't use him. I'm going to have the shit. So I ended up going with a safer option in Lolo. But yeah, look, he didn't score as well as Pangai. But I know I'm skipping ahead to Lolo, but I just think they're both interesting comparisons. I really like what I saw from Lolo. He was almost crossed the line twice. There was a little bit of something extra there about his game this week as well. So that's nice. But yeah, TPJ is good. But for me, I think if we can try pick him up close, it probably seems like the safer move.
Yeah, I think so too.
A bit risky, showed its signs.
Yeah, and the thing is like for most people, I mean, if you didn't trade Haas this week, you probably got IPAP in your front row, and there's probably if you're someone like me who doesn't have Lolo or TPJ, go for the safer option with Lolo until round 13 and then move on in there. But I just thought, with the fine looming, it's always a bit of a risk. And the last thing you want to do is bring someone in like that who's basically a 19th or a 20th man at best, and for him to get suspended for a number of rounds, if not round 13. Which brings us to the next game, which fortunately we're going to have to talk about it. Timmy, you're a Penrith fan, but they went down on Friday
I'm fine
night.
with that. We need a loss, man. I'm happy with that. Para played really well. It is what it is. I'm still happy with the way the boys played for the most. And yeah, it's good to see that there's competition, and it's good to see Para, lift from after a big loss as well.
Yeah, and look, you'd rather have the loss now in the season rather than when it really matters going into finals. So it is what it is. It was bound to end sometime for you guys.
Yeah, that's it. The boys need a reality check too. Otherwise, wins will just seem too easy for them, and that way they'll, having that loss will make them appreciate the wins a bit more. So they'll probably, needed that. I think going forward's important.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. The highs for this one, we had obviously Taylor May with a 96. For those who sold, I think every podcast in Supercoach world was saying don't do it. Happy with a 92. The key ones for the Eels were Isaiah Papali'i with a 93 or 94 with I think 46 in tackles, 9 tackle busts, 21 hit-ups, just an absolute beast of performance, and you can tell I'm an owner. But the other one was Clint Gutherson with a 96. Probably my key talking point for this one is, and it's relevant to you, if you weren't, you aren't an owner of iPad, and you spoke briefly on the previous podcast about, is it maybe too late, missed the boat, going to go with someone else? Do you think, particularly with Roosters and Manly being the next two, is that the approach you're going to take? Or after seeing this huge base stat performance, are you going to try and move on to someone like iPad?
I think I'll probably bypass him just because I think you can't have everyone. As much as his scores look great and they're stupidly consistent, you're just paying that little bit of overs for him. He does seem to give you what you pay for, though. So, like, you've got other guys that might be scoring you to 60 or 70, and you pay that extra, 150 or 170K or whatever it is compared to some of the other players, and you end up getting that extra 20 to 30 more often than not. But I'm sort of trying to hope that I can just sort of make up those points elsewhere on the field, and not going to freak out and try bringing a prop at that price at this time of the year.
Yeah, and look, you are absolutely right with that. He's going to hit around 800, 810K. It is overs. He will have these performances like this, but I don't know how his body's going to survive with that.
When I say prop, I'm aware he's a second rower too. For me, if I was going to play him, I'd only be playing him in prop. I wouldn't put him in my second row. I just think he's a perfect prop position. I think you can play him in both, but I just think ideally you have him in prop because his head's above the others.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's him and Haas. So you're going to be everyone's props by the end of the season. The lows for this one, Liam Martin with a 30, which is tough. I know a couple of people still held on to him. Mitchell Moses with a 34, and Isaac Tago with a 34. I think another one is Tago. Big talking point is Tago. I actually benched him this week for Tuilagi,
nice one.
Which was fantastic. But the theory was there.
Yeah. You've seen it. There was, He's a funny one, isn't he? We've been talking about him for a couple of weeks. Is he is he a keeper? Do you think, maybe is he, peaked? He's had some underwhelming scores, but I think we need to be patient with him. The fact that he's had these low ones, I think the big ones are probably just around the corner.
Yeah, and I think if the time to sell, I think was last week for this one. He will. He's going to run into points. It's only a matter of case, and he'll. There's a reason why he started off on the run he did. I don't think that's just because Cleary was out during that time, and I think he'll be back to his usual form in no time or not. Next game, which was a fantastic game. I was there live at the stadium at 4 Points Park, was the Seagulls and the Tigers. And this is particularly great for you, Timmy, because you brought in the man, the myth, the legend, the best-looking man in the NRL, Ruben Garrick. So would you excited by what you saw from him?
I don't know about that. He's up there. He's probably definitely a top 10, maybe a top. I don't even know if he's a top 5, but he's definitely up there. And there's nothing against the scar on his face. I think that makes him even, better looking. But look, that's fine. But okay, Garrick's is good. DCE is good. What about the little young fella though, Burbo? Forget about it. Bottom dollar. Oh, Savs wanted to play him at the last second. I think he couldn't get into it and couldn't change it in time or something. Bit of a rookie error there if that's what he wanted to do. But look, he's a busy man. He's a family man. But we all make these mistakes. Unfortunately, he played Tuilagi instead for a 31. So I think Turbo's baby Burbo. He's interesting. If he can, or maybe even at least hold that center spot, he might be a buy. He might have a bit of job security issues, but it's probably worth the risk, huh? Because you've got his dual positioning. You can move it around. It seems like it's not that stressful.
Yeah, and I think for him, watching the game, obviously he's an absolute star in attack. He was looking fantastic. The first try where he did like a
Hit and spin.
whirlpool around. Yeah, the hit and
Yeah.
spin was
That's
incredible.
clever, though. You know what I mean? That's smart. Yeah.
Yeah, and no one at the game was we thought he was held up for sure, but just spinning out, it was fantastic form, and I think he will keep that spot.
Mm.
I think his defense is the issue, but I think his defense is actually better than Morgan Harper's. So I think they'll find a way, and he's the type of player where he'll be so high on confidence after the game that Des I think will ride that one. So yeah, I think he'll be a key trade in weeks to come. I believe we have the
I think
Eels
he'll rise
next.
after this week, though.
Oh, Willie.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
because
he's
he's
played one
played.
already. Yeah, so he might be
Yeah,
a pretty popular target this
yeah,
round. We'll see how it goes. Not everyone will be able to go there. There's been a lot of cheapies sort of pop up recently, I think.
yeah. Well, I mean, the thing with him is he has easy 200K potential in him. We're playing a lot better. We haven't really clicked into gear, and he just looks fantastic in attack. So I think you go there and you deal with the risk that he might get dropped.
An
And they'll
affordable
find a way to get
Trbojevic.
in. Yeah, I mean, how is it? We're not going to have this for a very long time. He looks like a star of the game. And the good thing about that is, there are some centre wing cheapies which have peaked. Your Panasinis, your Tagos, and if you want to create cash to upgrade a few positions, Trbojevic, Burbo is a perfect trade in.
Nice one, Amal.
Yeah, yeah, he's smashing it. 1290, he says, currently ranked 91, which is fantastic. So you think you get into the top 50 with that, and mate, Amar, you should be running this podcast instead of me. So the lows, Stefano with a 6. Don't know where that came from. Very popular pick at the start of the season, but
He
unfortunately,
got sent off. Didn't he? Oh, he got a tenner.
Yeah, he did. He got 10 in the bin. But still, I mean, you thought he would come back on at least, have 20 or 40 minutes. But
Return from
but alas,
injury.
he didn't.
Yeah.
But someone to watch. His price is going to drop significantly. And we also have Tuilagi, who is also a key kind of player. A lot of people played him in matchups. Primarily, I think the people who played him were Olakau'atu owners. And after laid out, they just got Tuilagi in. 31, I mean, for all the hope we had, and he'll be a great player for years to come. I think you pivot off him, sell him off. It doesn't appear like he's going to be his year. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, he's a tough one, isn't he? I don't think you can play him. I don't know. He might be a downgrade for me, possibly. I'm thinking about, because I'm starting to grow a bit fond of a lot of my players. Thinking if I was to get a Burbo in, might be a little downgrade from him to Burbo is on the cards for me at this early. I don't usually try not to think about trades until TLT, though. But that's sort of washing around in my head a little bit.
Yeah, but I think it's the trade to make. I'm going to make that trade in all likelihood. Give me a good bit of cash, it's
It's a shame he hasn't risen more though, because he's sort of he's only like 2. Oh, okay, he's 322. That's nice. He's got over the 3s. Nice. Okay.
Yep. And so I mean, he's one of those ones where you create a bit of cash. I don't think we'll have a shortage of cash with Pappy being out and probably a trade, but for a couple of weeks forward, you'll be able to sell him out. Have some cash in the kitty, and then kind of move on to some upgrades in weeks to come.
You get the vibe it's going to be a couple of weeks, 2, 3, 4 maybe for Pappy, or what's your thoughts?
Oh, I think so.
I know you're not the NRL physio. Sorry, I'd put you on the spot there, mate. But
no. Well, actually, my brother's a physio, so I should ask him. But I don't. I don't know. I mean, I think the thing that hurt him was actually staying on after the first kind of niggle. I know it was a different injury, but he might have been favouring it in the getting back into it. I think it will be 2 or 3 weeks, and I think at that price point, you kind of move on. It's the opportunity to get someone like a Turbo, and we don't know what's going to happen with Origin or something like that. But the Storm are in a place where they can rest Pappy for 2 or 3 weeks. Wishart played fantastic today.
Got that vibes of last year, even though it's not a knock, like he's not even getting a head knock. I think if you kind of held him for 2 weeks, what would be 2 weeks, if they say 2 weeks and it turns into 4 and then 5, that's when you can start to fall behind holding someone that's on the bench for about 900k. So yeah, it looks like he's going to be a very reluctant sell, huh?
Yeah, I think so too. It's always tough when you have to get him back in pretty much the moment he's named. But I think it's, with the trades we have, if you've saved a couple, it's kind of one you can afford to trade him out and bring him back in. Which brings us on to the next game, which was Roosters and Titans. I'm going to call this one the rebirth of James Tedesco as a captaincy option. So he scored 126 points. Looked fantastic, didn't he, Timmy?
3 meat pies. He was on fire. He looked great, man. He looked ready to go from the get-go. The team were gelling, so as soon as the team gelled, it seemed like Teddy was going to perform, and it's exactly what happened. So hopefully that little bit of form is now going to continue for the Roosters. I'd really like to see him do well. When the Roosters are playing good footy, it's entertaining. So I've got a feeling this is probably now the time that they will continue their form against Steve. It's going to be a tough game next week for them. They've got Parramatta, but I think they'll be up for it.
Yeah, and that was leading on to my talking point of this game was, the Roosters back? It seemed that way. They seemed to be clicking into gear significantly.
Luke Keary being back in form was really important, I think. He sort of played really well, which was a huge factor to all of that.
Yeah, and Sam Walker also appeared to take a bit of a back step and let kind of Keary run the show a little bit more, which is kind of what we're talking about. They weren't crossing over too much and appeared to flow a lot better. So, for someone like me who had a Tupou, most of us have got Suwali, it's good signs going ahead. But for people who own, say, Savs, who owns Tupanua, who was benched 14 in 18 minutes, was this injury related or is this just a jobbing?
I don't know whether he's just doing a rotation. Maybe Butcher's, I haven't been paying much attention to Tilly's performances, to be fair. I've been focusing more on their halves and their spine, you know what I mean, when they've been losing. But perhaps maybe it is on performance. Who knows? I think the thing is about with the Roosters, it's a little bit awkward because they've got, the whole Butcher, Angus, Tilly, and they're all sort of fighting for that. It's a bit like the Knights last year, how there was all the Fitzgibbon and Barnett and Connor Watson. I hate having a player and it's a nervous watch week to week, wondering whether they're going to get the start or not. And then come game day, it might be too late. You might not be able to, cover that as well. So when they are benched, if it's later in the round. So it's an awkward one. Maybe he might be a sell, but then again, I don't know. Just be a close watch, I think. Maybe listen to what's going on with their side. Roosters don't play 13, do they?
No, they don't.
I'd probably say it's a sell then, hey? It's unfortunate.
Yeah. And they're getting some troops back too. I think they'll have Connor Watson back this week or next week. And the thing about him is, he's heavily reliant on the tries, and that's who he is. I don't think there's going to be a shortage of him on the Roosters side, but I think for someone like him, you're banking on him getting through, and against the Eels, I think coupled with a bit of risk about whether he's going to start or not, I think you kind of pivot off. There's plenty of better options at the second row position.
Paul Ross Mann's question's been up there for about 20 minutes, so let's answer that. It says, Paps was out. Yep. Would you jump on Hines or Turbo? Poor. I own Hines. I'm really keen on Turbo now that I've got to look at him and the fact that Pappy's down. But if I had to go one or the other, I'd probably say check on matchup. But Turbo's got way more pedigree about him. Like he's got, could go 200 game after game, whereas Hines seems like he's His ceiling's closer to that sort of 150 to 170, but Turbo, you can't put a cap on him. So I'd probably say you'd have to go Turbo.
Yep, Turbo. And minor correction for my previous statement. The Roosters actually do play the bye round 13.
Okay.
I got confused between them and Souths. Because those are
awkward.
my kind of two ones. Yeah, which is awkward for someone
I'd
like
hold him then. In that case, I'd hold him. Angus will get the call up to Origin, so yeah, I'd keep him there. You just can't play him. You just have to bench him. Just be patient with him.
Yeah, and they're going to have a really good side for 13. I mean, Manu's going to be back at fullback. They play Canberra Raiders in that round 13 fixture, so he's the type of player where
they'll have a good side. They'll have their halves. I wouldn't think Sammy Walker would get there. You know what I mean? Unless there's an injury. So. Yeah.
But yeah, in that case, he's an absolute hold. But yeah, I mean, back to the question, Hines or Turbo, that's really the conundrum that I've got to deal with because I don't have Hines. And I think after watching Turbo, I still think he's not 100%. I thought that he was good. But I just think Hines has that element to him this year. He's also, I mean, yes, he's going to be around the top 700s and of that, but I think maybe you can get a squeeze, especially with Manly playing a difficult fixture this week. I think you can squeeze an extra price drop out of Turbo and go someone like Hines, who's going to be, I would say, close to a negative or a very low break even at least, and move on Hines this week. So that's where I'm thinking, Ross. But unfortunately, we'll see what Team List Tuesday holds for me.
Manly
and where the money lands.
Manly play in round 11 Para, which is probably going to be a hard matchup, I think, and also Melbourne in round 12. So you could maybe look at Hines. His matchups seem a little bit easier. But I don't know.
Yeah.
Look, I'd still go Turbo. I'm such a fence sitter. Look, go Turbo. I'm going to say go Turbo.
Well, I mean, I would originally say Turbo, but I mean, after watching what the Broncos did to South Sydney, I don't know. I think they might have a really good game against us. So anyway, but yeah, I think it's kind of flip of the coin. Work out what's best for your team. I think the good thing that also plays into people who are keen on Teddy of Turbo over Hines is the cash generation. It's almost going to be a like for like spot for Puppy and Turbo. So if you've got the funds, and especially with Burbo this week, you might not really care about price. You might just want to get someone like Turbo, and albeit his break even. So that kind of plays in his favour. So that moves on to the late Saturday night game, which was the Cowboys and the Knights. Obviously, we've spoken about them briefly about Tamalolo. It didn't kind of reflect in his Supercoach score, but he still looked fantastic. I completely agree with you on that point. The key ones for this performance were Felt with an 82, Holmes with a 74, and Randall with a 78, and as well as Drinkwater 74 with an injury. My talking point for this one, Timmy, is Valentine Holmes. He's always kind of one that piques my interest at this point of the year. I know he goes into Origin, but he's looking fantastic. I'm looking for keepers in the centre wing position. This is not so for the next couple of weeks, but more so for maybe Origin 2 or going into the run home. With Cowboys looking really good, Holmes being vital in their attack, do you see a world where Holmes finishes as a top 3 centre wing?
No, my gut vibe is no. I get the feeling that it's a real shock at the Cowboys to me. I've been hard on them all year that they're in third. I can't see them finishing in the top 4 for some reason. I just don't. I feel like by the end of the year, I just feel like they're going to fall apart at some point. I don't feel. Look at them on paper, and they've been really, really impressive. And I was watching them this week, and they're actually playing really good footy. You know what I mean? I'm really trying to pay attention to how are they going about this. They're playing good footy. They're fast. They got good line speed. They're playing to certain positions and then working to stuff. So. Yeah, I just don't think he's. I like him, but I don't reckon he's a top 6. He could be a good pod. It's handy. He kicks goals, but I'm not in love with him.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I didn't bring him in last year, and I'm kind of not keen on him as much this year. Is you know, Cowboys attack hasn't been the most trustworthy in years past. I'd like to see it for consistently for at least another 6 to 8 weeks before I really invest that much in a centre wing. And he's sitting around 580K, or he's going to rise to around that price. So you're investing a lot in someone that could easily flop. So maybe one to have a look at.
600 already. 600 already.
600, yeah. So with that score, he should be sitting around that price. It's a bit too much, but
Oh,
but
okay.
I don't
You
see.
don't know. Yep.
I don't think he'll drop that much in weeks to come prior to Origin. I think they'll still click into gear. But definitely one to look for the run home. The next game, which is the big one today, Storm versus Dragons. Huge scores all around for Melbourne. Anyone that you pretty much had in the Melbourne squad, save for Xavier Coates, absolutely smashed it today. So the key ones: Grant with a 129, Munster with a 122, Nick Meaney with a 76. The lows were, of course, Coates with a 23 and Ravalawa with a 5. I didn't actually know that was possible. The talking point for this one, of course, is Pappy. We've been through it. Let's just give a scenario. If it's scheduled, it's going to be a couple of weeks. Would you sell? If it's scheduled to be, of course, with anything more than that, you would sell. But what's the minimum amount of weeks you take off to sell someone like Pappy? Is it 1?
My vibe at this time of the year, if it was like a 1 week thing, I would just hold it and see how he went. But 2 weeks or more, I'd just sell, especially in that position. You get him back when you have to. I just feel like it'd be really hard going against people that have 2-gun fullbacks. Like if they've got like Turbo and Teddy, or Turbo and Hines down there, and they've still got Cleary and some other gun. I want 4 guns as much as I can in those positions. So I think I'd have to reluctantly sell and then maybe turn, the shitter performer of the other 2, Turbo or Teddy, back into Pappy at some point once he comes back. And I'd imagine, I've got a feeling that it'll be Pappy and Turbo that we run home with. And I still reckon Teddy will perform well, but maybe because he doesn't have the kicking or Azovic at the back of his name, he won't. Yeah, he might not be able to score as well as those 2.
Yeah, look, I think it's kind of like with the Haas news. If it's 2 weeks, you'd kind of be tempted to move on anything. I mean, it sounds like I think someone was saying it was a tear, which doesn't seem fantastic at all. In fact, it doesn't even seem like it'll be a couple of weeks. It might be 4 weeks. So I don't think in that case the decision will really be made for us. But just want to kind of think about some potential scenarios. And the second talking point is Nick Meaney. Is it a case of Xavier Coates 2.0, and you're just chasing last week's and the weeks before's points, or is he a viable option? And is there a world where if you have Hines, you'd go, a Pappenhausen to a Meaney and plant that in there?
It'll be interesting to see what the Storm does. Like, I would think that they would I would think that they would put Meaney at fullback, but maybe they play Munster at fullback, and that, what's his young fella's name? Wishart, or could play in the halves. Yeah, maybe even what's his face? Meaney plays in 5'8" or something like that. There's a lot of different ways it could go. I think it'd be a close watch to see what happens. I think if Meaney was at fullback, it'd be interesting, but anywhere else, probably not.
Yeah,
Any other
I mean,
position,
look, he's kicking goals in that side without Pappy, so there's definitely upside there. I just think with other options, and especially the risk around. I mean, I'd be thinking,
but I'd want him in
Wishart,
centre wing. I wouldn't put him in fullback. I think that's a risky thing. You'd put him in centre wing.
Yeah, for sure, and then that's what I kind of suggest. I mean, you kind of ping him that way, and which actually brings us on to a fantastic question from Ray Watkin, who says, Tim, are the Villy Navy any relation to the Villy Army? Any truth to rumour next season will be the foundation year for the Villy Air Force?
That's right. The Villy Navy's actually my sister's side. She's doing pretty good. Yeah, so I don't know. The Villy Air Force, maybe we might have a merger or something next year and become the Villy Air Force together. It's going to be sad when Villy Army leaves Penrith, but I think we'll still have to stick the Villy in the name somewhere.
Mate, for tradition's sake, I think you do it. Which brings us into the last game of the round, which was a very tough watch for me, not having, Talakai and Hines wasn't fantastic. But of course, the winners of this one, Hines with a 144. There's talk that he may update to 160, 170 plus, which is just absolutely huge.
It's scary.
Yeah, for the 1% of people like me who don't have him, is it a matter of break your side apart, use a trade boost to get someone like Hines in, in addition to maybe a turbo?
It's tough. He's going to play Origin. I think he's going to probably be the 14th man for the Blues, but being that he's probably coming off the bench, I could see him be such a crucial part to the Sharks. He'll probably back up. So where a lot of our other Origin players will, miss round 13 or miss that one game and maybe even the game after, I don't think he'll miss the game after. So I think maybe you could, but it's a little bit awkward with the buys. I feel like maybe, yeah. It sucks week after week. You play long term, just get him in now and then play the same game that everyone else does and hold him and worry about it later. It's just stressful not having Nico. He's just all over the Sharks. He's the boss of that side and he's killing it.
Yeah, 100% with him playing at fullback too. With the Will Kennedy suspension, it's tough to say the fullback's better than half, but I just think he's just a slam dunk pick. In that fullback position, I think the Sharks will be still a very well-oiled machine without Will Kennedy in that.
How long do you think Kennedy's going to get for that?
Well, if Lawton got 4, right? I think that's probably 3. I don't think it's as bad as Carl Lawton's, but I
can give him a fine. I don't reckon he should. I maybe 10 in the bin. I don't think send off. I know I might be being biased just because they're smaller bodies. I think when we see two big guys clash, everyone's sort of like, whoa, but when two little guys doesn't seem as intense. Like, no one got hurt. But yeah, I don't know. I sort of feel like he sort of stepped away from it, and it wasn't complete. It was a coat hanger. It was a bit rough, but it didn't look like he got injured. I know we shouldn't just be doing it if there's an injury, but it seemed like a big mistake. He was apologetic like straight away. I think it was a pretty big call sending him off for the whole game. And bloody hats off to the Sharks. What a game they played to go down to 11 men for 10 minutes of the game and then still be stuck with 12 and be that gassed to being down to 11. They were playing such good footy when they were like the way they were defending and just scrambling. And in attack, it was just like watching almost like sevens footy sort of thing. You know what I mean? There was just mad open passes. They were really wheeling it around. It was awesome. Well done to Sharky supporters. And if you're a Warriors supporter, that's a really tough loss to have to have sat through.
Yeah, it's incredibly tough when you think you've got a little advantage. You're going to make the game slightly competitive, and the Sharks have a completely different idea.
Put 19 points on them.
Yeah, absolutely ridiculous. In answer to your question about send-off, yeah, I think after the Lawton one, refs are probably more keen or they're more willing if there's something which is kind of above and beyond, which, that coat hanger didn't look good at first glance.
That second one, though, with the shoulder from, I can't remember who did the shoulder. Who did the shoulder?
Oh, was it
Ramian.
Or not?
Was it Ramian?
Ramian, yeah.
Yeah,
It
that
was.
That was direct contact to the bloke's, like the middle of his face. Like, see you later, Aiken, the poor fella. See you later, bro.
Yeah.
And then you're going to get 10 minutes. So I think if they got those ones back to front.
Well, Josh King says it was worse than Lawson's, I felt. I'd give him 6 and I'm a Sharkies fan. So, Jesus. I think 6 is a bit too much, but...
Stepped into it, and it was just a little bit around the neck. It was a bit more like he walked into a like one of those limbo poles without limboing, or he tried to play high jump without actually doing the jump. He just got a little bit around the neck. It wasn't like heavy contact. It was more sort of just his body went up. You know what I mean? It looked dramatic. It wasn't as dramatic as it really was, I don't think.
Yeah, I think you might be talking about Jesse Ramien's one there for a sec. I don't think that's 6
Oh,
weeks.
Ramien's one, yeah.
Oh,
Ramien's was intense. No, Ramien's was like full on, big. He's got a massive shoulder to the middle of Aiken's face, like dead on, bang.
Yeah, KO'd him too. So, I mean,
that was heavy.
I mean, I hope you and obviously friend of the podcast is good. But the good thing
massive friend of the podcast. Yeah, sometimes he's been asking if he could come around for barbies. I've just been a bit busy, but look, Ewan, have you around for a barbie sometime soon? Sorry, mate, just been a bit flat-y with the potties.
Yeah, it's like Jason Saab. I mean, look, Jason's actually not injured. It's just a cover because he's hanging out with Timmy and Savs all the time. Just wants to spend more time. Developed a really good relationship with them. Oh, far out. The lows for this one, and this is kind of the key talking point, is I was one of the non-Talakai owners who was thinking about bringing him in last week. And, a couple of pedestrian scores, people saying he might get dropped. What do you think for Talakai? He's going to peak around 770K. 46 isn't the worst score in the world. Would you be trading him out even if he's named at centre next week?
It could be a nice sell. He's got that Fafita vibes of someone that you just expect him to do it, expect him to do the real flamboyant things, and when they don't, you get disappointed with their score. He's at a big price. He could be a nifty sell, but I'm really loyal to a lot of these players that can do big things and have big ceilings in them. I think when you sell a guy like that and then they turn around and they go score that big one, it's really hard to watch, and you're really hard on yourself for the next week until the footy starts again, until you can try to forget about it. So, yeah, I think I'd probably just hold him until it was a more obvious sell, like he loses his spot or he was to get an injury or something like that. But, yeah, I think I'll probably keep him even if he's getting a high BE and his prices seems peaked. I think I'll keep him.
Yeah, if I was an owner, I'd keep. He's one of those players who can just absolutely set a game alive.
He's getting the duel too soon, so in round 12.
And, excuse me, particularly if you got him at around 400, 500K, I would absolutely keep him because it's like you almost got him at that price. But if you got him at, even if you got him at, I think it was about 600, 700K whenever I was bringing him in a couple of weeks ago. I think you've made the investment. They're coming up against the Raiders, the Titans, in rounds 10 and 11. He could easily score 2 times, and as a non-owner, I'm pretty nervous about not having him in my side. So despite the big break even and the huge price tag, I think I'd at least give him another game if he's named at centre wing before I ship him out. Which brings us to some questions. So I'll pick out a couple. We can answer them. Note as Timmy's favourite gentleman, I think it's Snowflake is his name.
Yes, chuck her up, Snowflake. What do you got for me this week?
No, there's Snowflake's not in the comments, but
okay.
This express disclaimer that our moves and our thoughts do change during the week.
I even hit Twitter up this week because I bloody had been saying I was getting TPJ, and I put a bloody announcement out there to anyone that does follow me that I ended up getting told Malolo because I was bloody worried about the likes of Snowflakes haunting my bloody inboxes.
Oh, you got a target on your back, Timmy. Everyone wants to.
Everyone wants a crack at the title, mate.
Yep. I think they just love the Vili Army. I don't think it's got anything to do with the title.
Exciting news to come for the Vili Army too. I can feel it. It's about a week away. It could sometime throughout the week. Exciting news to come. I'll just watch this space.
And that we will. Couple of questions. I think the key question I've got, which if I could find it, was for people who own Damien Cook, obviously watching Harry Grant, there are a fair few people, I don't know, I think maybe Kando from from obviously from SuperCoach groups. He's got Cook. I don't know whether he has Grant. Would you be absolutely trying to sell Cook to Grant, or do you believe that Cook's a hold as a second hooker?
He's probably a hold if you've got him, but if it's too stressful for you to try and work out how else to get Grant, I'd probably just rush to do it. It's a stressful time to be doing these sorts of things because they both play Origin, so it feels a bit weird. I feel like, do you just ride Cook out until, maybe trade it to another hooker? It's a messy one. I don't know. I'm glad I've just got Grant and don't have that problem myself. My advice would be probably get Grant sooner rather than later. Even though he does play Origin, it's just he's off his head.
Yeah, he's a set and forget. Too, you're not going to trade him out over the Origin period. Cook might be rested, but even if Grant plays 50 or 60 minutes, in all likelihood he'll average 70 anyway. So I don't think it's a particular issue. Definitely agree with you there. And that kind of goes into the next question, which was: are Grant and Munster about to be out of reach till the end of the Origin? I think for me, the previous advice applies to Munster. I think you just bring him in. These guys are going to go huge. They're the best in their position, and you just break apart your team to get them.
It's real awkward because if some of these people have got someone like the likes of Dylan Brown and they're thinking, should I be selling Dylan Brown to Cam Munster? I'd be saying not now because Origin is just looming. You know what I mean? He's going to miss a couple of games, most likely Munster. They'll probably rest him up for round 14, you'd assume. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like, it's a tough time of year. I feel like you would definitely need to get him, but after Origin, you wouldn't want to be trying to bring 2 or 3 Origin players in now. Now it's a time to be starting to bring in people that are going to play that round 13 bye, with the exception of maybe one gun. You can maybe, like, in the next period, bring in one gun. Like, if it's going to be, for me, I'd probably be Travojevic, even though he's going to play Origin. I just want to straight swap him from Pappy, like for like, gun for gun. My team's not getting weaker. It's staying the same, if not maybe getting stronger. But yeah, if I didn't have Munster and I didn't have a Cleary and stuff, trying to rush all them in before Origin seems a little bit weird. Maybe only one of them and not too many of them. And target, try to find the guy that can score the next best in the position. And it'll probably work out better.
Yeah, and look, I mean, JC, I don't know how many players you have for the round 13 bye. If you've got all the key ones, your TPJs, your Taumalolos, maybe even Joey Manu or someone of that case, then yeah, maybe. But if you're lacking behind and there's some round 13 numbers that you can bring in,
it's 3 more weeks, right? So they'd get 3 more weeks out of him at least. Maybe it is worth it. Yeah, maybe just because I'm thinking about buys, it makes me now think that buys are that close. 3 weeks, maybe get them in. Yeah, I'm changing my mind. Changing my mind a lot, but yeah, I think so. I'm sitting here now thinking to go without some of these players for another 3 weeks. That's some big scores that you might be leaving behind, especially if the guys you do have in their place don't really go off at all. Awkward times.
Yeah. I mean, the one thing playing in the favour of your opinion of maybe getting in 1 and not 2 is they play Penrith. They do have North Queensland. They have Manly in 12. Hopefully, Manly will be kicking to gear then. It's not the
Melbourne Penrith should be. I don't want to be like, this is what it will be and I've got to pick the ball. But I think it should be a under 34.5 points sort of game. You know what I mean? Like a low scoring, pretty tight defensively, working each other, giving each other a lot of respect, kicking to positions and waiting for the other to make a mistake and then trying to capitalize on field position. I can't see it being like, both of them scoring quite a fair few points. So I probably wouldn't worry about trying to rush in anyone from Penrith or Melbourne this week, but maybe the week after. But then you're only getting 2 weeks out of them.
Yep, quite possibly. I mean, I think with any approach, you've got to go with your gut. But I don't think you're losing in any case.
So many factors to come into play with the SuperCoach decisions, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But it's also like, I don't think you necessarily like lose out. I mean, if you're getting in a couple of round 13 numbers and there are people you can hold in your team to the end of the season, it's probably a great thing. But if you get in Munster and they get rested over Origin period. And I mean, you're getting someone you're not going to trade out either Grant or Munster. And I think that's where
So
my sentiment comes into play.
maybe if you brought in Grant and a round 13 player, you're sort of covering a bit of both. You go, I'm getting the gun and I need the gun that I'm getting, but I'm also, hedging my bets a little bit and getting a little bit prepared for the round 13. It might be even just a Burbo. I don't know. Yeah, Burbo would play round 13. So then you might feel, all right, at least I've ticked another number off there. So someone like that, for example, that might be a good way to go about it.
Yep, I think that's a very, very sensible approach. Probably going on to a good thing to talk about. We were talking about him previously. Luke Keary, Donny be good asked, is Ilias to Keary two sideways? Coming from a gentleman such as yourself who owned
I started
Luke
with Keary, yeah. Although he looked good this game, and I think the Roosters are now going to hit form, they're also hitting a tough matchup sort of run. Their run's getting sort of much tougher now. The first 9 games for them were pretty easy on paper. So the next couple of, 6 to 8 weeks, I think is pretty tough for them. So although I think they're going to play well, I think that means they'll play well and they'll need to against the big sides. They'll probably win more of these games against the tougher sides, but they might not smash them. You know what I mean? And so maybe you don't need a Keary. It's a nice pod, but I started with him and I was really underwhelmed by the low scores. And Sam Walker can take the reins sometimes, and yeah, I don't know. I don't think so. I don't like it. I gave him a go, and I don't like Keary now for SuperCoach.
Yeah, I
good
think,
footy player, but for
SuperCoach, it's a bit of an issue, and there are some clear cut options both in halfback and 5'8". I think it's kind of one of those positions where you kind of got to get it right. It's stacked. Even Dylan Brown, people that haven't sold Dylan Brown, he's looking fantastic and looks all the while a keeper. So I wouldn't be, I'd be looking at people like him over Keary. It's only, and the thing is with if it's a price thing, bring in Burbo or one of the other cheapies this week, and you'll make that Ilias to
with Keary too. Reason I started with him is I was really expecting Roosters to be smashing teams, and I thought if they're smashing teams, then he's going to get a lot of that love. So now I don't feel like they're going to be smashing teams, even though I think they're still going to win. So I still feel like it's the same. It's not worth it now. Like you'd want to have him when they were smashing teams, and that never happened. So they've just played sort of mediocre, and then they'll probably play really good against decent sides, and win. By 6 or 8, or occasionally by, a little more. But I can't see those 30-point margins coming up in many games coming in the future. So they got a tough run.
Yeah, and that's the kind of. I mean, I started the same. I started with a bunch of them. I started with Connor Watson, Daniel Tupou, Sammy Walker. I kind of had the same approach, and I think they are clicking into gear a little bit, but I think there's still a ways to go for the Roosters.
So this is their draw. They've got Para, Panthers, Sharks. I think they're 3 pretty tough games. The Sharks are defensive juggernauts. Panthers are defensive juggernauts. Para showed some form last week. It'll be a tough game for them. I think they'll get up. I think their Roosters are playing really good footy, even though Para won last week and they'll be on a massive high. I still think the Roosters will probably just outbeat them in a tight one. But then after that, they've got Raiders, a little bit easier, obviously, but then Melbourne, Para again, Panthers. So in the space of like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks, they play the Panthers twice, Para twice, Melbourne, and the Sharks. That's yuck. That's tough games. That's tough footy. So I feel like even like maybe even Suwali might not be the greatest of plays for a lot of these games, particularly the Storm, Panthers, and maybe even Sharks game. I feel like Sharks are really good defensively as well.
And I didn't, I only looked at the next 4. It's only when you have that wider context you realise how, their draws
a crazy hard draw for the next 8 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah, and for me, I've got Daniel Tupou. I think he's probably a keeper, but there's some centre wings coming up, and and looking fantastic. I mean, maybe a round 13 move off him, or maybe it's a round 12 move to Ruben Garrick or something like that.
I think you might want to sell him round 14. You'd play him in round 13 against Canberra, and then round 14 he's got Storm, Para, then Penrith. So maybe you could get onto someone who's got a nice run there and get off him for a bit. Because I think we can probably afford to get off some of those players when they've got a tough run.
Yeah, 100%. And that kind of leads me into probably the second to last question is Ruben Garrick. Obviously, you brought him in, and the kind of thing that I was going to pick your brain about was bringing him in. He's around 600-ish K. This week, we have a pretty tough game against the Broncos, but then we move into as we spoke about, not the easiest draw. Would you still be prioritising bringing someone like Garrick in your centre wing? I know he'll play fullback in 13.
To'o's great, and being a Panther supporter, it's really hard for me to say Garrick is the better option. I think just because To'o's probably going to be playing State of Origin, or most certainly will be playing. Garrick kicks goals. The thing I like about Garrick, and what sort of got me over the line finally for him by the end of all of this process, trying to work out what I was doing this weekend, was the fact that if I didn't get Turbo because he was expensive, and I still thought Teddy was going to have a big game, so I thought selling Turbo to Teddy was sideways for this week particularly. And lucky I didn't, because it would have turned out. Now it's turned out that Pappy to Turbo is probably the way to go, not Teddy to Turbo. But the other thing is too, like Garrick was hedging the bets, and half the time I felt like when Turbo scored big last year, Garrick scored well was by him putting him over, which you can see him getting those line break assists and the try assist, which is more than the points that that Turbo might give him for the try assist. And the try assist and the line break assist, as opposed to the try and the line break. Yeah.
Line break. Yeah. No. And I've been. It's tough. It's a tough one. I think this week's going to be really hard because of the Pappy injury, and because Burbo's coming in. I think the people that got in Garrick this week are going to be in a massive advantage if he pops up against the Broncos, because he's not going to be a priority this week for a lot of people. Unless you're using a trade boost to kind of make that Turbo in, Burbo in, and Garrick move in work. So. Yeah, I mean, if you can make it work and you've already got Turbo, I think you go for it. I think he's a keeper. Turbo's looking fantastic, but
so he's got the question wrong. I was just saying, I thought it was To'o or Garrick, but he actually wants To'o. Yeah, I wouldn't be going To'o and Garrick. I'd be going Turbo and Burbo, or Garrick if you could actually, or maybe Garrick and Burbo.
And I think he means
Garrick and Burbo.
Yeah, and I think
just because they both.
Yeah, I think he's saying because he's saying if Hines is out. I think he's saying if Pappy's out. So yeah, I don't think Hines is going to be out.
Yeah, that's a confusing question. That's why I gave it probably a confusing answer. I don't know. and it's been a long week. So
no, it's been a long week. They've got a question from Aman. He said, "Hey, gents, just tuning in. Turbo close to a must, we reckon, with the Paps injury." Well, probably a good final question to kick it off. I think. Probably I don't think he is.
It might be another option. I don't think a must. He doesn't. It didn't look perfect, but he looked pretty good. There might be better options, like starting to think about a buy fullback, like. And I was going to say Gutho, but he doesn't play the first one, so probably not him. No one really standing out.
No.
Yeah, maybe Manu looks like a juicy option coming up because he'll play fullback for the Roosters. But then again, what did we just say about the Roosters? And tough draw, playing a whole bunch of tough sides. So that's a tough thing about bringing Manu in. I thought he was a good. Yeah, I don't think he's a good buy anymore. Manu.
He's going to have a huge break even too, Joey Manu, because he only scored, I think, 30 or 40. So at his price, he's going to have a couple of price drops before round 13 if you want to get onto him. So I think if you don't have, I'm on the Hines camp. I don't think you can go wrong with bringing Turbo in, but I don't think he's an absolute must-have. Like, I don't think we're going to score 100. He's going to score 140, 150 against Brisbane. I hope he does as a Manly fan, even if I don't have him in SuperCoach. But I just think that we haven't clicked into gear yet as a side, and I still think he's not looking 100%. And mine says rightfully no great.
I reckon
no great round 13 backs.
Turbo and Cleary are just about the most must-have-ish players, as well as Pappenhausen when they're pretty much fit. And I wouldn't worry too much about playing those guys on matchup, but whoever they play is pretty fine. So I think he's close to a must-have.
Interesting. Let's hope if I go Hines this week that doesn't come back to bite me in the butt. You never know. I might have to go and use a trade.
Don't lock yourself into a decision yet. Keep your mind open to it. Sort of let it wash over.
Next thing you know, Slowflake will be hitting me up.
Yeah, it's fine. Change your mind. It's okay. If you lock yourself in now, there's more decisions in the air. Ask the universe. Universe will communicate to you. There will be a number plate that'll probably say something like HYN, and you'll be like, Hines? Is that Hines? Nico Hines? And you'll see it when you're driving. I'll have to get him. Happens to me all the time. I saw SJ this week. I sent it to you boys in the group chat. There was a symbol of SJ, and the J actually looked like a Johnson, to be fair. Like, it actually looked like a doodle. It was like it had a really big head on the bottom of the J. It was an SJ. I don't know what it was, but I was almost tempted to look at SJ because of that sign from the universe. So keep your eyes open, Maxi. Play Eyes Up SuperCoach.
Look, that's a fantastic tip, and the only kind of tips you get from the only Tim Moody, the 2021 SuperCoach champion. Timmy, lovely to have you on the Sunday pod. Good luck for the upcoming week, and take care, my guy.
You too, my brother. Thanks for joining, guys. Bye.